What happens when a CEO decides to go undercover in his own company? Let's dive into the story of one man who uncovered truths that changed everything he thought about success, loyalty, and fairness. It was a crisp autumn morning when Richard Langston, the CEO of Apex Solutions, walked into his office building dressed like no one would recognize him. Gone were the tailored suits and polished shoes. Instead, he wore faded jeans, a plain t-shirt, and sneakers. He had decided to do something bold, go undercover as an intern to truly understand what life was like for those working under him. Richard wasn't just curious, he felt disconnected. The numbers on spreadsheets didn't tell him how his employees felt or if they believed in the company's mission. So, with a deep breath, he stepped onto the bustling sales floor, ready to blend in. The first person Richard met was Samson Reed, a wiry young man with glasses perched precariously on his nose. Samson worked tirelessly at his desk, typing furiously while juggling phone calls. Richard noticed how Samson always seemed to have 2 cups of coffee nearby, even though it looked like sleep hadn't touched him in days. There was a quiet intensity about him, but there was also a weariness in his eyes that made Richard pause. "Hey," Richard said casually, trying to sound casual himself. "Need any help?" Samson glanced up, surprised. "You're new here, right? Thanks, but I've got this." Over the next few hours, Richard watched Samson work. He handled customer complaints with patience, closed deals with confidence, and never complained once. By lunchtime, Richard couldn't shake the feeling that Samson was extraordinary, but something didn't feel right. Why did someone so talented look so exhausted? Later that afternoon, Richard found himself sitting beside Samson during a team meeting. The manager praised Samson publicly for hitting record-breaking sales targets 3 months in a row. Everyone clapped, but Samson only smiled faintly before returning to his notes. Afterward, Richard approached him again. "That was impressive," Richard said sincerely. "How do you keep doing it?" Samson shrugged, avoiding eye contact. "Just trying to make ends meet, you know?" Something in Samson's tone struck Richard deeply. It wasn't pride or ambition, it was resignation. Later that evening, after everyone else had gone home, Richard stayed late to review Samson's file. What he discovered left him speechless. Samson Reed, the top performer in the entire department, earned less than half of what other senior salespeople made. His overtime hours stretched far beyond what anyone should endure, yet he received no additional compensation. Worse still, Samson had been passed over for promotions multiple times, despite glowing reviews from clients and colleagues alike. Richard sat back in his chair, anger bubbling inside him. How could this happen? Hadn't he built this company on principles of fairness and respect? Yet here was proof that the system had failed someone who deserved better. The next day, Richard called Samson into his office, not as an undercover intern, but as the CEO. When Samson entered, he looked confused, clearly expecting another lecture about deadlines or quotas. "Sit down," Richard said gently. "I want to talk to you about something important." For the first time, Richard saw fear flash across Samson's face. But instead of reprimanding him, Richard handed over a thick envelope. Inside was a check, double Samson's current salary, along with retroactive bonuses for all the extra hours he'd worked. "I owe you an apology," Richard began, his voice steady but heartfelt. "You've carried this company further than anyone realizes, and I let you carry that burden alone. That stops now." Samson stared at the check, then at Richard, disbelief written all over his face. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you deserve it," Richard replied simply. "Success isn't just about profits, it's about people, and without people like you, we're nothing." In that moment, something shifted between them. For the first time, Samson allowed himself to smile, a real, unguarded smile. From then on, things changed at Apex Solutions. Richard implemented policies ensuring fair pay and reasonable workloads. He encouraged open communication, making sure every employee knew their voices mattered. As for Samson, he flourished. With proper support and recognition, his performance soared even higher. He became not just a top salesperson, but a leader within the company, inspiring others to strive for excellence without sacrificing their well-being. Looking back, Richard realized that going undercover wasn't just about learning about his business. It was about rediscovering humanity in leadership. Sometimes the greatest lessons come from the least expected places. And sometimes the hardest truths lead to the most meaningful changes. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. If you'd like to show some extra love, tap the 3 dots near the share button and send a super thanks.